Hi there, this is going to be a document of a little mini knockout tournament I played recently with a buddy of mine. Being as we own so many armies between us, we thought it'd be a nice chance to play a lot of games. We did 7 battles in one day, but they're only small 1,000 point battles. And basically we wrote the lists and we rolled off which army we'd use in each battle. And with the final battle, we were able to add units which had survived previous battles, add them to our armies, so that added a really interesting twist to it. There's no actual descriptions here of in-depth battle reports, it's just going to be very brief descriptions with pictures of the battles, so please bear that in mind. If you're only after sort of in-depth battle reports, then you won't find it here, but I thought it'd be good to document this tournament as it was a lot of fun and I didn't want to forget any of the battles. So the first battle we played was Beastmen versus Daemons. So this is the demon army at the bottom. You can see 20 plague bearers there and 3 plague drones forming the core of the army. Versus the Beastmen, 30 bestigors, 30 gores with extra hand weapons, and a gore bull who's kitted out to be pretty good in combat. The Beastmen advance very aggressively and get off some charges. Basically the bestigors fail, the doom ball goes into the blood crushers and the gores go into the drones. However, the gores are basically terrible against the drones and end up getting flanked by the plague bearers and crushed. Those 2 units then go on to crush the bestigors in combat as well, although it's pretty close. Bestigors do well, hold out well in combat. However, the gore bull does very well against the blood crushers. He ends up victorious against the blood crushers. I believe he got charged by the plague drones and also beat them in their turn, reformed, charged the depleted remnants of the plague bearer unit and also beating them, and they just crumbled away due to their instability. So the gore bull actually just ate the majority of the demon army all on his own after the other 2 units were destroyed, but it wasn't enough to pull out a victory though, as the demons did rack up more points. They still had their herald left, and looks like seekers left as well. So the beastmen lost this round, and the demons will go through to round 2. So Skaven versus Wood Elves next. Basically the Wood Elf army is all mounted, all fast cavalry. Bit of a cheesy army, but I just thought it'd be nice to have something different rather than just blocks of infantry. There's one army which is well suited to this. Unfortunately, this meant that this Skaven, which was comprised of 2 large blocks of infantry and a doom wheel, just couldn't really get to grips with the Wood Elves. They didn't have any offensive magic, I don't believe. Well, they had a couple of plague spells on the plague priest, but they're very short ranged. The doom wheel shot at some wild riders. The first hit, because it got strength 6, first hit was warded by the 6+ ward, second hit failed to wound, and the third hit was warded by a 6+ ward. It was subsequently charged and massacred by the wild riders, who in this picture you can see end up rampaging. One block gets charged by wild riders, that's a block of storm vermin there, and just killed. And then the plague monk block with the plague furnace surrounded and just pelted with arrows, and I believe that plague furnace unit does get off a ridiculously long charge which needed boxcars, and they get that off on a unit of glade riders, killing them, and at least earning this game some points, but apart from that it was a very catastrophic loss for the Skaven. Tomb Kings versus Dwarfs. We've taken to actually allowing Tomb Kings, not that we use them that often, but allowing them to use the Generals of Undeath rules from the End Times Nagash book, which allows them to march when within 12 inches of general, just like vampires. It's very strange Tomb Kings list. 6 chariots for core, 3 Necropolis Knights, a Necro Titan, whatever it's called. No, sorry, it's a Necro Sphinx, and the Lich Priest. versus Dwarves, which is a block of hammers, block of warriors with great weapons, and good old organ gun with master engineer and +1 to hit and forging, rune of forging. No cannon though, unfortunately, which means the Sphinx is able to block, give hard cover to the Necro Knights. Chariots come round that impassable terrain in the centre, and the organ gun opens up on the Sphinx but doesn't do anything, and this ends up with it being charged by the Sphinx. The dwarf warriors with great weapons then end up being charged by a tomb scorpion in the flank, which then popped up from sand, 3 knights in the front and the Sphinx in the back. The hammers were not in a position to interfere with that, and they also had the chariots bearing down on them. Hammers do decide to wheel round and get ready to charge the Sphinx in the flank, which would have almost certainly tipped that combat in the dwarf's favour. However, the chariots take the opportunity to charge the hammers in the flank, and they just do a devastating amount of wounds. I think they get +1 attack as well on the chariots, and although the hammers are very good in combat, there's just not enough of them left to make a difference, and this ends up with Tomb Kings losing nothing, I think, and the dwarfs losing everything. So it's a very tough matchup for the dwarfs, I think, this one, with no cannon and no real viable targets for the organ gun until it was too late. Last battle of the first heat as Warriors of Chaos versus Vampire Counts. The Warriors army is 22 Chaos Warriors, Mark and Nurgle and great weapons, with a Chaos Sorcerer in the unit with Law of Nurgle, 3 Skull Crushers and 5 Hellstriders with the whips that give them always strikes first. Vampire Counts got a Terrorgeist, 5 Hex Wraiths, 25 Zombies, a Necromancer level 2, 21 Ghouls and 3 Vargheists. So basically the vampires move the Terrorgeist up and scream at the Skull Crushers, but it only kills 1, I think, and does a wound to another one. The Terrorgeist then gets charged by the Skull Crushers. I don't think they do anything to it though. They end up getting screamed and also take a few wounds over the course of a couple of rounds of combat, and basically the Terrorgeist just eats them. The Vargheists coming round to the flank of the Warriors. Warriors march up into the centre and head towards the Ghouls, get ridden through by the Hex Wraiths. So all in all, it's not looking good for the Warriors, and basically that unit of Chaos Warriors makes its way around that terrain there, squares up against the Ghouls, and everything piles into them like so. So they get Vargheists in the flank, Terrorgeist flies up behind and screams at them, Ghouls in the front and the Zombies in the flank. Zombies actually have a Cairn Wraith hero in the unit, so that's not a bad combat character, and the Warriors don't have any magic attacks. Warriors hold out for a little while. Obviously they're doing the insane amount of damage with their 2 strength 6 attacks each. Importantly, the Hellstriders at the top of the picture have managed to remain unmolested so far, and they seal the deal, unfortunately for the vampires, by making a charge into that huge unit of zombies, kill so many along with the attacks on the Warriors that basically everything just turns to mush. I mean, the Terrorgeist even charges into the back of the Warriors. Just so many zombies die that everything just pops and crumbles, and the Warriors come out. I think there's 7 Warriors left at the end, and everything in the Vampires army, even the Hex Wraiths trying to help out but to no avail. Everything in the Vampire army apart from the Necromancer dies. So Warriors win this despite it looking pretty horrendous for them, and I think it's really because the zombies charged the flank, which they shouldn't have done. So that's round 1 done, and the winning armies from the previous round. We draw the names out of a hat for all these battles to see who's going to face off next. So it's Tomb Kings versus Wood Elves in this second heat, and I'm just going to be honest here, this is not a pretty battle in any way, shape or form. I got absolutely mauled by the Wood Elves as Skaven in the previous round, and this time I was fortunate enough to draw the Wood Elves to use myself, and I mean, I don't know what the Tomb Kings could have done. Basically, the Wood Elf army is 2 units of 5 Wild Riders, a unit of Sisters of Thorn with a level 2 spellcaster in there, and 2 units of Glade Riders with poison arrows, which obviously come on as ambushes, so aren't on the board, and a unit of, I think, 9 Way Watchers. And you can see the Tomb Kings got there Necrosphinx, 6 Chariots, 3 Necropolis Knights, there's a Lich Priest hanging out there, and also Tomb Scorpions burrowed. So Wood Elves move up, and it looks like this. The Necrosphinx tries to fly out and catch some of the fast cavalry, but is unable to, and they just pour poison shots into it. It goes down fairly quickly. I think it even gets a bit of luck and makes a few 6-up saves, but there's just too much poison, and also the Way Watchers use their multi-shot against it. And once the Necrosphinx is down, the 2 units of Wild Riders are faster than everything else in the Tomb King's army. They square off against the Chariots and the Necropolis Knights. They make the charge into them and obviously butcher both of the units since they're Wild Riders. So the game ends very quickly and brutally. Not much fun for the Tomb Kings player, but a mercifully short game. So Wood Elves will go through to the final. So the second battle in the semi-finals, and it's Warriors versus Demons. And the question really is, can anything hope to stop that unit of 22 Chaos Warriors in a 1,000 point game? So the Skullcrushers take the right flank and the Warriors march up the centre, and Skullcrushers end up facing off against the Plague Drones there. So here's the Skullcrushers gone into Plague Drones. You'll also notice that the unpainted Skullcrusher models, which are being used for Blood Crushers, have already taken some wounds, and that's because in one of the magic phases early on, the Demons rolled a double 1, and that means everyone takes an instability test, and they're the only unit that suffered some wounds and lost a model. I have to say, I really don't like random tables and effects and things which are beyond the player's control. I understand for Demons, it's a bit of a, it kind of makes sense for them in a way, it's a bit of a thematic thing, but I still don't like it. I don't feel it adds anything to the game, and it's an annoyance for the player it happens to, because they can't do anything about it, and it's annoyance for their opponent because they haven't, they may be given an advantage and they didn't do anything to earn that. So I don't like that. But anyway, the Skullcrushers go into the drones, and I mean, these are Skullcrushers. I can't believe how good Plague Drones are. They're really good. I didn't really think much of them when they came out, and I thought these Skullcrushers would just murder them, and they didn't. They end up losing against Plague Drones and fleeing like pansies. I'm not sure whether the Blood Crushers joined the fight. It looks like they did. And this Skull Crusher manages to survive, though, luring both of those units away and leaving the Plague Bearers on their own to sort of face the inevitable onslaught from the Chaos Warrior unit. So yeah, the Blood Crushers turn back round. Obviously they don't want to leave the Plague Bearers all on their own, since 20 Plague Bearers stand absolutely no chance of even stopping for a second. They march with those Chaos Warriors, and the Plague Drones continue to battle against the rallied Skull Crusher. So the Warriors charge into the Plague Bearers, and hopefully if the Plague Bearers can survive a round, then the Blood Crushers can charge into flank, although I'm not sure how much Chaos Warriors really care about 2 Blood Crushers in the flank. Maybe if it was Skull Crushers it'd be different, but for some reason the Demon Cavalry is significantly worse than the Warrior Cavalry, but I don't know. But the Warriors obviously win the first round, and the Demons roll that instability test, and they roll a double 6, which means they all die. Ha ha. Well, I mean, I don't like it when stuff like that happens, but you know, that's the game. It's a game of dice, and stuff like that can and will happen. So they got the double 1 early on in the game, damaging one of the units, and I mean, really, would it have changed the outcome of the battle? Nothing that the demons could throw at the warrior unit can really do anything to it, I don't think. But it's still a bit galling, I think, as a demons player. As an aside, I mean, I was fortunate enough to win the roll-off, or rather be allocated to play as warriors this time and in the last battle with warriors against vampire counts. And really, I'd have to attribute the victories of the warriors not to any great tactical plays on my part, but just to how tough that unit is and how tough the list is. With the 1+ slave cavalry and then those Mark-and-Nurgle warriors, they can just plough through anything. And the list was actually written by my opponent as well, so it's a very tough list, especially at 1,000 points. There's not a lot that can really make a dent in it. So warriors win that battle, and now it's on to the final, so it'll be warriors versus wood elves. So this is the final, and as I mentioned earlier, we decided that what we would do is units that had fought their final battle previously and had not died at the end of that battle, and in some cases we did stop the battle, say just before a unit was destroyed, in order that it could be used at a later date, or just before the final death knells were tolled for an army, for example. We'd allow those units to be added to armies in the final battle, and we sort of did some points calculations and a bit of finagling and wrangling, and we allowed the units to be fielded at their original strength, and we tried to even it up and also randomise it a bit. So we divided the units into groups and then just rolled off for who got them, and did a bit of fine tuning to make sure it wasn't like too one-sided or anything, and it worked out that we got approximately 750 points of units each. And so consequently this is one of the strangest battles I've ever fought and the weirdest mix of units, but basically again I'm using Warriors of Chaos versus Wood Elves, and I'll just go over what's in the armies. So there's the usual Warriors of Chaos army with the block of warriors, 3 skull crushers and 5 Hellstriders, which by the way are an awesome unit, and rate them very highly. Never used to, but having used them a couple of times, they're just awesome, really useful unit. So we've got the Warriors of Chaos plus 3 Blood Crushers, so we've got 3 Skull Crushers and 3 Blood Crushers. Herald of Tzeentch, who has 2 damaging spells. I think they're 2 magic missile spells. Another aside is that we kept the same magic throughout the battles to speed things up a bit. The Lich Priest, who we made an exception for in the magic and allowed him to use spells from Law of Light, since his previous spells only affected Tomb King's units. And I got the Gorbel as well, which I was over the moon about, because the Gorbel, although I lost with Beastmen, is just an awesome model. Well, as you can tell, we're using the Throg model, but he's an awesome model rules wise, and he's just terrifying in combat. So I was actually really pleased about the units I got, and my opponent using using Wood Elves has got 3 drones, Tomb Scorpion, Necromancer, who can raise dead, so that could potentially be an annoyance. The Poison Wind Mortar, yes, we know it's part of the Stormbowman unit originally, but we allowed it to just turn up on its own. And worryingly, 28 Plague Monks, so no Plague Furnace, since that's a character who died, but 28 Plague Monks, Plague Banner, and yeah, just Plague Banner Musician Standard. That is horrifying unit. I mean, yes, it will lose to the Chaos Warriors, but it will take a lot of them down with it. I mean, Plague Monks, 3 attacks each, re-rolling to hit and wound for 1 round, and it's not a very expensive unit either. In fact, just looking at their list here, 28 Plague Monks, yeah, they're cheaper than the Gorbel. They're 241 points and the Gorbel was 253. So it worked out roughly 750 points extra each, and I was quite pleased with the units I got. I thought it made for a strong army. So on the left flank, I believe my Hellstriders face off against some Wild Riders, get the charge, but kill a couple, maybe one or two. But Wild Riders are pretty good, and they're strength 4, and they make short work of the Hellstriders. And this flank then for the Wood Elves starts to advance around the impassable terrain in the centre. You may notice we've kept the same terrain for all the battles, again to speed things up, and also we're pretty happy with the setup there. So I advance the centre up, and my right flank is a bit faster and heads towards the drones. No charges from my opponent, and in the subsequent turn the Warriors and the Blood Crushers and the Skull Crushers and the Gorbel all make their charges, and straight away then early on in the game, I think must be turn 2 I guess, it's not looking too good for the Wood Elves. Well, 2 of their allied units are in a whole heap of trouble. So there's the Warriors and the Blood Crushers attacking the Plague Monks, and you can see the Lich Priest and the Herald of Tzeentch are cheekily peering through that impassable terrain at the flank of the Wood Elves, which are coming round, and they're able to see through and cast magic missiles, but obviously that whole piece of terrain is impassable, so the Elves are going to have to go all the way around. And it's quite useful that they both have damaging magic missile spells, and even a strength 4 magic missile is very scary to an elf. And the Skull Crushers again face off against the drones, but this time they've got help from their friend the Gorbel. Don't believe I mentioned, but in the last battle the Gorbel fought, I think he got up to 9 attacks. That rule that he has, what's it called, Blood Greed, I think. He just keeps getting extra attacks every time he wins combat, and he always wins combat. That's a pretty good rule. And here we can see the Warriors and the Blood Crushers have destroyed the Plague Monks. I think they just killed enough to break them and run them down. On the right flank, the Skull Crushers and the Gorbel haven't done enough to destroy the drones yet, but importantly it's Wood Elves' turn next, and there's some error in the manoeuvring from my opponent, and he moves the Way Watchers to be fairly close to the Gorbel. They were trailing the Gorbel, trying to pick off some wounds. Unfortunately they just didn't get any 6s with the armour ignoring shots earlier in the game, but they do stray too close to the Gorbel, and in the next turn, because the Gorbel does finish off the Plague Drones with the help from Skull Crushers, in the Wood Elf's turn he then reforms, and in my turn charges the Way Watchers. They flee. I think they're just unlucky and don't roll enough, and he catches them, gobbles them up. And that's an expensive unit. That's 180 points I think for that unit of 9 Way Watchers. And Gorbel for me already model of the tournament. It just, in the sheer amount of attacks, I've given him the Ogre Blade, who's strength 7, and he starts with 4 attacks and Frenzy, so 5 strength 7 attacks, 1+ armor save. I mean, yes, to be fair, he was lucky that he didn't come across more artillery. And meanwhile, the Wood Elves cavalry, which had been coming round from the other flank, does make it round and start gearing up to charge with the Wild Riders and wipe out everything that stands before them. However, I've got a few magic missiles up my sleeve, and I think I do manage to take out one unit of Wild Riders and damage another one. Tomb Scorpion gets my Tzeentch caster due to bad positioning on my part. However, Skull Crushers catch off guard a unit of Glade Riders. So we swap a few units, because the Skull Crushers, as you can see here, subsequently get charged in the flank by 3 Wild Riders, and that's definitely enough to kill them. Skull Crushers die, and then the Wild Riders make into the back of the Blood Crushers, but that's not enough because a couple of them have already died from the Skull Crushers, and it's all getting tedious now that I'm explaining it. But basically, we trade a few units here and there, and I think it's definitely the Warriors are coming out ahead, because not only have I destroyed the big mercenary units, I've also caught a few of the actual Wood Elf units, which are very difficult to catch, and the points are starting to rack up. and it comes down to one of the later turns of the game when that unit of Sisters of Thorn, which you can see on the right hand side of the picture there, they just need to move out the way and just get out of there as quickly as they can so that they don't get charged, and unfortunately they end up in this position where they're staring down 3 Blood Crushers, unit of Chaos Warriors, and you can't see in the picture but behind them is the Gorbul, the ever useful Gorbul, who's now advanced behind them after killing the Way Watchers on the other side of the field. They have plenty of move to get out of the way of everyone's charge arc, but unfortunately they're within 8 inches of an enemy unit and they fail their Leadership 9 March test, and they just can't get out of the way of everyone. I think I then charge them and they either flee off the board or I just catch them and kill them. I think they flee off the board, possibly. We play out the last couple of turns of the game, and the Glade Riders, I think, take a few pot shots at the Chaos Warriors, but it's not enough to wipe out the unit, and the game ends, and Warriors are victorious. So we tallied up the points and taken into account the mercenary units as well, and Warriors scored 1,706 victory points, and that includes 100 points for killing the General, and Wood Elves scored 644, so it is actually a crushing victory for the Warriors, and I was very lucky to get to use Warriors again. It's interesting, in the 2 armies that made it to the final were the 2 armies which specialised most in their chosen fields, and I was not very confident of winning this battle since Wood Elves was so difficult to catch. Obviously that was made a lot easier by the inclusion of some units which I could catch, and yeah, the Wood Elves, it was difficult for them, especially since I had 2 magic missile casters to whittle down their fragile units. Really tough for them to really do much about that. And Warriors win the tournament, and I think we played probably must have been 11 or 12 hours altogether. We did it all in one day, a whole day of Warhammer, and it was a lot of fun to see all these different armies, different tactics. I think the game is a bit skew-iff at 1,000 points. It's not the best points value, but there's still room for some interesting combinations and some interesting tactics there. Maybe we'll try this at a higher points level in future, but that's it. That's the end of the tournament, and thanks for watching. Hope the video was interesting in some way to you, even though it wasn't a normal battle report video. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.